Why focusing on happiness is making you unhappy. Stay tuned. Ready?
I am.
This is Damon Cart. This is Damon Cart from NLP Gym, and I'm here with Dr. Matt from Europe. And I don't like the way that sounded.
It was good.
From Europe, though?
Yeah, from Europe.
And I'm here with Dr. Matt, visiting us from Europe. And
we should record this.
It's already recorded.
But this is cool. This is cool.
No, I do this all the time.
But this is fun. Like you should just record my reaction to it.
This is Damon Cart from NLP Gym.
And this is Dr. Europe from Matt.
We gotta get through this already.
Beautiful.
All right.
Success.
All right. This is Damon Cart from NLP Gym, and I'm here with Dr. Matt, visiting us from Europe. And we're going to talk about why focusing on your happiness might be making you unhappy. But before we get to that, if you haven't already, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. So we were doing a training this past weekend.
Right.
And you said something really interesting that...
I hope that more
Just
than one thing.
Just
I
one
hope
thing.
that was more than one thing.
I should say, among the interesting things you
Oh,
said
thank you.
was something very unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something about happiness.
Right.
That basically you're not doing things to be happy, or that happiness is not really your focus.
No, it's not.
Okay.
What's more, I would even say that the more I live and the more I realize and the more conscious I become, which is a side effect of personal development, the more unhappy I become. Because simply realization itself leads to conclusions and to understanding how the world functions. And by freeing yourself from how the world operates, you also see how it operates, and that makes you, me, people sad.
So that is hard to understand then what your motivation is for what you do, or what would be the motivation for doing personal development, because I agree with what you said. At the same time, happiness isn't a focus of mine either, and I didn't really know how to say that, or I felt like that was almost like a wrong thing to say until I heard you say it, and I was like, yeah, you just kind of said what I feel, that my freedom, in a sense, is a higher value to me than my happiness. But happiness often is, for me, a consequence or a symptom of personal development. Is it not for you?
Sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. I think it's both. At the same time, you've got Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, because you become better, which means you're more effective, you're more successful. In the material reality, you get what you want to get, business-wise, personal-wise, and so on. But also, because you freed yourself from certain limitations, from certain ego constraints, now you see the model, how it works. For example, say you get rid of rejection, right? For example, say that you don't reject people who love you, example, right? And now you see how the model operates. You are free from it, so you are happy. This is good for you. But now you can notice this pattern in other people, and now what happens? And now you're in trouble that Buddha described before, saying, I can never be free until everyone else is free. Because now you see that others suffer. You don't, but you did. So you know the pain of it. So you're starting a new journey, and you're on a path of servitude. Now you start helping people because you don't want them to suffer the way you did before.
When you say that you're not happy, you're at the same time saying that you're not suffering, because you're freeing yourself.
Precisely. Precisely. Because happiness is, and I think when you were saying this, I don't want to interrupt you, I believe that happiness is simply another story that collectively we're telling ourselves now when it comes to purpose of life, right? So in certain religions they would tell you salvation is the purpose of life. In a certain philosophies, illumination is the purpose of life. Now in our capitalist worlds it's about success and happiness, right? We should be successful and happy. I mean, it's just a story, right? And what is hidden behind it is that you should feel good for no reason or for certain reasons, and that you should have a stable job and you should have a family and you should look a certain way and so on and so on, and it looks different in California than it does in Iowa, for example, right? So, but it's still a collective story, and I simply don't buy into it, because the more I live and the more I realize, the more reasons for suffering I have, but also because I am more conscious, I feel the suffering, but I don't identify myself with it, right? So I don't need to go into it, because I don't form and I don't feed that part of a collective story that exists, right? I see the mechanism, I recognize the mechanism, I know it's in a person, or maybe socially, it's in the nation, it's in the culture. I don't have it anymore, I'm outside of it, and I'm like sort of Neo in Matrix. I know that it's Matrix, but I am influenced by it as well, right? So, say somebody suffers, I don't. I am not indifferent, because that would be the opposite of love. So I still feel it inside of me, but because I don't identify myself with it, I'm able to help. And this is what purpose of my life is, to serve humanity, to serve others. And the reason that I suffer is that because I'm choosing this path, I am helping the ones in need, and they suffer, and because they do, I feel that. This is the price. Otherwise, I could follow the route of being happy, a happy egoist, have enough money to close myself off, the bad world, and behind the guarded fence, enjoy TV and reality shows, right? And drag myself to the point where I would knock myself unconscious, or identify myself with the stories, going, that's the purpose of life, but it's not mine.
And that's an interesting point, because I think there was a certain period of time that I was going through where I was trying to sort a lot of things out for myself, and which eventually led me to personal development. And people were telling me, Damon, you don't look happy. Mm-hmm. And I bought into the story, mm-hmm. that, oh, they're right. I'm not, and that's what I must be. And I went down that path, I bought into that story, I played out that story, and realized that yes, you can do drugs, you can drink, you can buy stuff, you can consume, you can have lots of sex, you can do lots of yoga, you can do lots of personal development.
Right.
All of those things, if you can hide in them, mm-hmm. because they make you feel good to a certain extent,
right.
Even the so-called healthy and spiritual practices.
Mm-hmm.
But if my focus was happiness, there was a dead end every single time.
Well, because personal development cannot be your objective, cannot be your focus. It's a side effect of evolution. So no matter what the child does, we have children, you and me, whatever they do, they learn from it, but they don't focus on personal development. They don't wake up in the morning and they say, today it's time to be better, today it's time to be more intelligent, today I will improve myself. They don't do this. But because we do, we constantly function from the premise that there's something wrong with us. But only if we cure ourselves with another miracle seminar, workshop, journey, product, book, medical cure, surgery, whatever it is, then we'll be finally good enough. But it's all bullshit. It simply doesn't work this way, right? So I'm on this path. It's called being a human, and it has its ups and downs. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm unhappy. But it's not that on a certain level it depends on me. For example, I can be walking down the street and the sun is shining and I have this glimpse and state of bliss, how much I enjoy it. But later, when I go, I see a homeless person. And this makes me unhappy because I've got so much money and they have nothing, right? And I cannot possibly cure this situation, because even if I give them money, they probably will not know what to do with it. Maybe they buy drugs, right? Or there's other people who need this sort of help, right? The mere fact that in the States 50% of food is lost and destroyed, and there's people in the world who suffer from famine. I mean, this is pathology, right? This is sick. And it makes me feel pain, and it makes me suffer that the world operates this way. But then comes humility. Who am I to decide what's good or bad? I just feel it. But the fact that I feel it, again, it's temporary, and maybe I can use it for something else. Maybe this motivates me to help other people. Example, when you speak to people who are in NGOs, non-governmental organizations, there is an interesting pattern. For example, was working in Brazil for a charity organization, and there's this guy who has an NGO helping children who suffer from cancer, right? And I go, why did you decide to do this? And, you know, tears appear in his eyes, and he starts talking how his own son died from cancer. And there's an interesting pattern. Many people who suffered enormously in their life, right, if they don't choose a path of rejection, of shadow, running away from it, they will decide that they need to help others because simply they don't want others to suffer the way they did. So who am I to say that the fact that I or anyone else suffers is bad? Because maybe it motivates us to help others and to make the world a better place. See, this is not my domain. I think this is divine domain of karma, fate, God, and other bigger than me entities who decide how the world operates. But what I know is that firstly, thriving and trying to be happy makes me unhappy, because then I start with the concept of there's something wrong with me. Secondly, it detaches me from reality, because instead of being empathetic and sympathetic, I look at people who suffer and I go for it, you'll be fine, you should think optimistically, right? Which deteriorates, which destroys my rapport with them, right? I should definitely pace their experience. I should be able to feel what they are feeling, because this is the only way to understand them, right? And labor to help them. And finally, if we consider that, for instance, I cannot tell you the percentage, but how many songs when it comes to love have been based on rejection, suffering, you know, divorce and so on. I mean, suffering creates art, right? So the notion, fundamental notion, that happiness is good and suffering is bad, I simply disagree with that. I think that suffering and happiness are two sides of the same coin, and they happen mutually in the universe. I have an inclination sometimes, like the weather is as good as it is today, to feel better. But then when I think that I'm in the US and my family is in Europe, then I have inclination to feel bad. But then when I feel that I will see them soon, I feel good again. And then when I think that I cannot control what's happening with them, then I feel bad again. But now I think that they are intelligent, because, see, it's a never-ending story. And it's always based on illusion. So the world is what it is. Seeing it from the future, you see it being conscious and free of certain aspects, which is a positive side of personal development. You notice that most people throughout their lives live in horrible illusions, that they are unhappy, that they need help, and it makes you, if you're sensible, motivated to serve them. And you can serve them better if you are satisfied from a material standpoint, which means if you yourself don't need to worry more about your money, about your situation, and you focus on others, then your life's mission is to make this world a better place, because sooner or later there's nothing else we can do. We live anyway. We have lives anyway, right?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from you is that this idea that you can move toward happiness and away from suffering is a dualistic game. Mm-hmm. That means you have to not accept your suffering. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, you can't open yourself to happiness.
Yeah,
at the same time.
I mean, you do yoga, and you're amazing when you stretch your body, and you stretch your body in ways that I think that if I did it, I would never come back to normal positions again. When I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling, when I stretch every now and then, or when they beat me up, it hurts. There's pain in it. It's suffering. But what it gives to my body, how healthy it makes it, is good. So I think it's both at the same time. There's things that make me suffer without happiness. There's things which make me happy without suffering. There's things where I suffer and I'm happy at the same time, right? And there's things which have nothing to do with happiness and suffering. I walk in the street, I think about something, and I don't dualistically judge the world in a black-white concept of this is good or this is bad. It just is.
And what it can do to your self-esteem to put happiness up there, like I have to be happy and I have to show that to other people, and people expect me to be happy, and if I'm not, then something's wrong with me. And that can send you in that direction of personal development, but it is based on a sort of a faulty foundation, and eventually it'll catch up to you.
That is correct. Throughout centuries, culturally, people have looked for different forms of happiness, and we were told that if you believe God, you will be happy, or if you practice a lot, you will be happy, or you will be illuminated, or whatever. Different schools of philosophical thought in ancient Greece were selling different concepts. Everyone seems to know what kind of recipe they should have to make you happy, right? But you know what? I noticed that not only are those recipes not good for me or for other people, because I should create my own way, I also noticed that my own way changes depending on who I am and what happens, right? When my wife was giving birth, I saw her suffering. Oh boy, seeing this was heartbreaking, but what was taking place and what was happening and the fact of becoming a father was one of the most beautiful experiences in my life. I cannot possibly put this into a very limited concept of this is good or bad. There's just so much more to the world than this very limiting belief of happy and suffering and good and bad that I don't go there. It changes, right? But I feel what happens with people, and because I feel that, and this is my choice to consciously feel that, because I could, with my resources and my knowledge, I could separate myself from humanity, you know, live for the rest of my life in a comfortable place, don't worry about anything, behind closed gates, enjoy TV and so on, right, and drink my favorite wine. But I live differently because the call and the need, the vocation to share the knowledge that I have with others is of servitude, and this to me is about morality, but it's a different morality that is supported by different philosophical or religious systems.
So to wrap this up,
right,
for people who are watching this who are in personal development and maybe even just shattered the concept of personal development.
No, I don't think so. I think we expanded on it.
Hopefully. What would you maybe recommend to them to focus on? If now we're saying, hey, happiness isn't really where you should be focused on, what would you say to someone that they should focus on, or what would be something good to focus on instead of happiness?
Focus on everything. Right now, for example, I'm not focused on happiness, I'm focused on my presence and responding to your questions. I am focused on giving them the right advice. But today when I go to the gym, I will be focused on exercise. And then when I drink coffee, I'm focused on not spilling it and drinking coffee. This means presence. And when you are present, personal development is side effect of everything you do. And sometimes the best conclusions happen in the moments where you were not really in personal development, but it just happened. I mean, think about this. The guy who shouted, "Eureka!" he entered his, bathtub, right, making experiments. And Ian Fleming, when he discovered penicillin, he was on holidays. He came back home, not mentioning how sildenafil, which is very important, basis for a very important drug called Viagra, was discovered. I mean, we call this coincidence, maybe it's superior intelligence, but the point is that you focus on what is in front of your eyes and what you want, what is happening with your life, plus planning, and this is how you evolve and expand three-dimensionally rather than linear expansion, which is, I need to be better, because it's not intelligent enough just to be better. I think we should be fuller. I think we should be more complex. I think we should be more authentic rather than only being better.
All right. I think this is one of those videos you could probably watch over and over. I think I'm going to watch it. This has been really good, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Damon.
Right. I should say that because that's going to be happening then. Well, I was thinking, I kind of teased them about future talks, but that's not going to work. Check out my website, nlp-gym.com. Follow me on Facebook for real-time updates on upcoming workshops and talks that I'm giving or that I'm hosting. And if you like this video, please click like right down here. And again, if you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button and hit that bell so you'll be notified when I put out new videos. Take care.